I realize that if the room I had successfully accessed at such great personal risk had not offered another way out, I would have been in deep trouble. Closing the door behind me, I felt immediately more comfortable. The room had been painted in what had once been a bright orange, and the paint had not lost all its warmth over time. The wood paneling probably brought a pleasant, homey feel to what I believed was clearly the factory overmare's office. Now that wood was rotted and crumbling. On the back wall above the desk was an oversized logo with a deeply tarnished bronze. Iron-shod firearms. How do you like them apples? I didn't get it. Ignoring it, I looked around. Large, fancy desk, a chair, filing cabinets, a poster in a backlit frame, the same poster I had seen several other times in the factory, but this one was in better condition, showing graceful Pegasus ponies soaring through the sky, rainbows exploding behind them as they shot down on dark, demonic striped figures with evil, glowing eyes. Better wiped than striped. Join the equestrian forces today. A wardrobe. My eyes barely touched these, moving to the important things first. The office had a terminal I could hack, a wall safe I could pick, and a personal elevator that, if it worked, could get me safely to the first floor and out of this death trap. There was an ammo box under the desk. Then my eyes fell on something unique. Mounted on the opposite wall was a glass case, and in that case was a beautiful and perfectly preserved revolver. A similar model to mine, but crafted with what must have been approached love. It had a scope, and an ivory bit molded for an extra comfortable fit in the mouth and ease of trigger. On the handle was an emblem. 3 apples. I tried my hoof, so to speak, at the first safe. It was tough, taking a few attempts, but after breaking one bobby pin, I learned better how to prevent further losses. The safe opened with a generous click. The impressive amount of objects made me wonder if my excursion into iron-shod firearms had been worthwhile after all. I started sorting the treasure from the rubbish. Inside was a sack full of pre-war coins, a copy of Equestrian Army Today, a whole bunch of finance papers that ceased to mean anything hundreds of years ago, a box of what looked like bubble gum. I couldn't decipher the writing on it, a spark of magic battery, and finally an odd hoof-strapped arcanotech device that looked like it was meant to interface with my pip-buck. Curious, I slid it on and let my pip-buck analyze it. Stealth buck, invisibility spell, 1 charge. Hot damn. Next was the terminal. Pulling out my utility suit, I slid out my access tool and started to work. The terminal was tougher to crack than the previous ones. Even with my tools, I had to abort the terminal several times before getting locked out. I pulled another apple from my bag and bit into it, intent on the screen, only to hit something painfully hard. Levitating the apple up to eye level, I saw it was a bullet embedded in it. Looking down at my saddlebags, there was indeed a small hole, although it took me a few minutes to remember what had happened. Once in, I discovered a whole mess of old notes and messages. In addition, the terminal had a shutdown key for all robotic security, and it could remotely open both the safe and the display case. I rolled my eyes, thanking the universe ever so much for giving me this potentially life-saving option, only now that I'd already fought my way to the finish, no longer needed it. I also realized that I could have saved myself a bobby pin if I had worked on the computer first. I told the terminal to open the display case. Doing so triggered a message. Cousin Brayburn, I know we ain't talked in some time, but the war effort's taken a twist for the scary, and I might not have the chance to see you again. I want 'em in fences. Now I ain't gonna muck this up with words. We all know how well that went last time. Instead, I'm sending you a little Macintosh as a gift and as an apology, to show you I'm sincere. Keep him safe for me, will you? The accent was very much like the voice I had found on Velvet Remedy's Pip-Buck, although this time was clearly not from the same pony. But it was the earnest tone of the recording that made me pause. 200 years ago, some pony had given this gun as a token of apology, and as an effort to reconnect with family, and that some pony's cousin had done just as she asked, preserving the weapon for generations after his own death. I wasn't going to leave it here, untouched by any pony until the building collapsed on it, but when I took it, I removed it respectfully. All that was left was going through the rest of the office. The ammo box held bullets for little Macintosh, and not a shy amount. In the wardrobe, I found some old maintenance suit that I could use to repair the holes in my own utility barding, and another garment that I left behind. Eventually, I turned to the elevator and pushed the button. Nothing. Of course it didn't work. The wasteland just couldn't give me a break. Pulling out my tools, I opened up the side panel and tried to figure out what was wrong if I could fix it from here. To my great relief, I could. The elevator proved to be in impressive condition, particularly considering the rest of the building. But the battery for the interface was dead. As Celestia's mercy would have it, there had been a replacement in the safe. One swapping of batteries later, I was on my way, and as the door slid shut, the thought crossed my mind. Macintosh. Wasn't that... I trotted between the collapsed buildings that littered the area around Ironshod Firearms, not having any particular direction to go. Aimless. I hadn't found any signs of civilization. Civilized civilization, mind you. I had kinda given up on finding Velvet Remedy. For now, I was satisfying myself with random exploration, although that had just proven exceptionally dangerous. In Stable 2, I knew exactly what my future would be, as unbearably dull as it would have been. Out here, in this huge open outside, I was struggling with just the opposite. I never considered that having an assigned place might be as much a relief as it was a burden. My ears perked at the sound of overwrought, triumphant music. I watched as a sprite bot fluttered down across the street. Running up to it, I drew myself around in front of it. Watcher? It just floated by. I dashed in front of it again. Hello? The music just kept playing. I waved a hoof right in front of its lack of a face. It danced around me and kept going. Well, that was helpful. I picked a random direction and started trotting again. I thought of Watcher's advice. Armor. Check. Weapon. Double check. Guidance? I looked back at the Ironshod building. A bit iffy, but check. Friends? It's kinda hard to make friends where there doesn't seem to be any pony around. My exasperated voice echoed off crumbling walls of concrete. If this was a quest, it was a lame one. I seriously needed to find something to do, preferably other than dodge and duck. In Stable 2, I felt painfully ordinary. I yearned to be special. Now I yearned to be anything. My downcast eyes chanced upon a Red Rider scooter amidst the ruins. Reaching out a hoof, I flipped it back onto its wheels and prodded it back and forth a few times. 3 of the wheels were locked with rust, but to my surprise, one still turned. Looking up, I found myself at the edge of a playground. The swings and slides jutted into the oddly colored air, blackened by ancient spellfire, like bones of a great dead beast. The merry-go-round was warped and canted. The skeleton of a baby pony was still curled at one end. Sadness and immense shame flooded me. I had been feeling sorry for myself in the midst of all this. Another tiny skeleton lay against the burnt husk of a tree, 3 roller skates in the dirt near its hooves. The 4th, I doubted anyone would ever know. I plodded on, moving through the silent impromptu graveyard. At the far end, sheltered by walls that were mostly still intact, I found an old vending machine. Sparkle Cola, the machine was still advertised through the years of grime. It featured a backlit emblem of stylized carrots. Surprisingly, the machine still looked functional. Fishing out a few pre-war coins, I fed them to the machine. I didn't actually expect it to still have soda after all these years. I was astonished when the bottle rolled out dutifully. I suddenly realized how awfully thirsty I was.